Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 5th Annual Destination Cannabis Panel Discussion. Thank you for your patience. This is the first time we're doing our panel at a consumption lounge in Atlantic City. So we did have some technical issues, but we're thrilled to be here. And thank you, John, for hosting us today. My name is Jane Buckenevich. I'm the faculty director of the Lloyd D. Levinson Institute of Gaming, Hospitality, and Tourism at Stockton University. We produced this this annual webinar, along with our Cannabis and Hemp Institute, Cannabis and Hemp Studies at Stockton University. So we're thrilled to be here, and I know everyone's waiting to hear from our panelists. I'm going to turn it over to Rob Mejia, our panel moderator.
Thank you very much, Jane. I am a cannabis professor at Stockton University, the only university in the state of New Jersey to offer a major in hemp and cannabis business management, and which we launched just this year. We also offer a minor in cannabis studies. I'm also the president of our Community Harvest, a cannabis education company, and I'm an author. This book, Cannabis Careers, will be available April 1st. This is my third book in cannabis, by the way. If you'd like to get into the industry, could be a good resource for you. I would like to thank our panelists for being here, and we are going to talk a little bit about cannabis, hospitality, and tourism with a focus on consumption lounges. Give you just a little bit of quick background on where we are in New Jersey. This last year, we did $1 billion worth of sales in 2024 in the legal cannabis market. That is with about 200 dispensaries that are open, roughly about 40 cultivators. There are in operation in Atlantic City right now, 14 dispensaries. So we are at the heart of cannabis here in New Jersey, and the heart of what could be a vibrant hospitality and tourism hub. So with that, we're going to start the questions, and the panelists will introduce themselves as they answer the first question. So the first question that I have, and we will go with John and then Spencer, is cannabis consumption lounges are about to open in Atlantic City. What are you most excited about? And what do you think will surprise people the most about the lounge experience?
How you doing? I'm Jon Cohn, founder of High Rollers Dispensary and Agri-Kind, also located in Atlantic City. So for me, I think it really is just finally being able to get to that point of melding cannabis and hospitality, whatever that means. Just consuming with other colleagues in public, to some of the places I've seen, we're probably going to add video games, different activities that seems to be done. We have a consumption bar, as you can see here. Can't serve alcohol, but certainly can test a variety of glassware. So I think it will just give people a new, novel thing to do and a place to go that doesn't mean they have to go to a bar.
I'm Spencer Belz. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of SunnyTien Dispensary in Atlantic City. For me, I'm most excited to offer the experience of a consumption lounge. People come to Atlantic City for the experience, the beach, the boardwalk, food, gambling, music. That's what makes Atlantic City such a unique place. And cannabis consumption will become part of that ecosystem. It's going to give people the opportunity to explore something new, to also have a safe and regulated environment to consume cannabis instead of doing so on the boardwalk or the sidewalks. And really experience something that's unique to the East Coast in general. You can go to Las Vegas or California to explore some lounges, but Jersey really will be the first state to properly offer a consumption experience for the cannabis community. So we're most excited about that.
And next question is for our next panelist, Smrita. Your infused oils and ghee allow people to cook with cannabis for public events and at home. How do you see infused foods fitting into the broader cannabis hospitality and tourism scene?
Great question. So my name is Smrita Choubey. I'm the founder and CEO of Veda Warrior. We are a holistic health company that's exploring the ancient Indian philosophy and history and medicine making tradition along with cannabis. And in our research, we found that actually one of the most ancient and traditional ways to consume cannabis is through food. And so in India, we have this very, very old and rich culture of infusing various oils with cannabis. The ancients had an understanding of cannabinoids and different infusing processes. And these oils were cooked into foods and drinks that are very traditional in our culture. We just had a holiday called Holi, which is the festival of colors, where we throw around colored powders. But at the heart of that is cannabis infused food. We've specifically made a traditional drink that comes from where my family comes from in northern India. We also infused it into little small bites. And so what I'm most excited about with the consumption lounges coming online is the opportunity for Americans to experience a multidimensional experience of cannabis. We've all been smoking, but have we ever actually had an opportunity to be in a fabulous location like this and actually be served, whether it's small bites of different infused foods or also drinks here? You know, we can't serve alcohol here, but cannabis drinks, which is very, very ancient and traditional. I just handmade some pong for our holy party this weekend. There's so much culture and history and tradition and that's yet to be explored. So I think this consumption lounge model really allows us to go back to some of our roots and reinvent it for modern times as well.
And I would say that when you're ever at a cooking with cannabis event, that is a great opportunity for education. Because I find that people are there for a while, they want to learn, they want to relax. So in between courses, you can talk a little bit about history, you can talk about different methods of consumption, answer their questions. People are relaxed. So I do find that that is a great way to engage people in a conversation and to fight some of the stigma. And it's especially good for people who might not want to smoke. They may be worried about their respiratory health. And they might want longer effects too. So that is one reason why I personally do like the cooking with cannabis segment of cannabis hospitality. Next question talks about creating a welcoming experience. Because you can imagine, if you walk into a consumption lounge for the first time, you don't really know what to expect. I mean, for people who are here in our audience, this is the first time they've been in a consumption lounge. I would say 95% of you. And so we're going to talk about how to create a welcoming experience. We'll go with Spencer, and then Jon, and then Smrita. Whether it's a lounge, infused products, or a dispensary, customer experience is key. How are you designing your space, products, or services to make them welcoming to new consumers, as well as experienced cannabis users?
So Rob, I think you started touching on this as the opportunity for education. It's really difficult in the dispensary to be able to fully educate somebody on that product without being able to show them hands-on or even open the product, because in New Jersey, all of our packaging is pre-sealed and opaque. You can't see the flower, you can't see the edibles, you really can't explore that product hands-on. Having that opportunity in the lounge to be able to open something up, show them that flower, thread the vape card on, walk through the accessories is really going to bring education to the forefront of this industry, or the Jersey market through these lounges. But we're going to treat our lounge as a full service experience. So many times people try to reinvent the wheel with cannabis when there's massive opportunities to learn from other areas of hospitality that have perfected these models. So we want everybody to be fully taken care of. We're going to provide the right accessories for the right products that they have. We will walk them through different methods of consumption if they need, assistance in using new, or different accessories. And helping them understand what that impact of that product is going to have on them while, they're consuming it or after they're consuming it. So for us, we really want to be supportive and we want to bring them into our ecosystem, because SunnyTien is education first. Understanding the products has always been our priority, and this is going to be a massive outlet for us to be able to do so.
Yeah, I would really add to what Spencer said, is that we actually do have a bud card so you can see the products, but it's very difficult being able to consume them. So having flights, having different ways of tastings for people is really critical for us. And as Spencer said, we're also very customer focused. It really is all about education. It's about letting people really understand what they're buying and making the right decisions. So you think we supported on the floor by bartenders and other assistants, but for them to come up here and be able to try a half gram or something or a gram or something in smaller quantities and then make their purchases is kind of a unique opportunity. We're very much.
That's interesting. So you actually see, so for a lot of people, I think they envision that people will buy from the dispensary and then come to the lounge and consume. It almost sounds like you have a little bit of a different take where you'll be able to educate them on a try before you buy, almost that basis. And then they'll go back in the dispensary and buy the product. Is that true?
That is true. And in addition, we were able to put a kiosk up here so we can actually sell right here without having to go back downstairs. There could be.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's actually very close to the Spanish model. Spanish consumption models they have where you buy in the area exactly where you're consuming. That's interesting.
Yeah, so I think that again, as both of the gentlemen have said, education is really at the heart of this. So one of the things that inspired me to start my edibles brand is that in college, I used to be known for my pot brownies. I went to college in a very, very cold part of the world, which is Chicago. So 9 months out of the year, we'd pretty much just be stuck at home. And what we would do is we would cook with cannabis in order to have something different, you know, to do with your college friends. And so from back then, I got very passionate about creating these experiences. I love hosting. I love throwing dinner parties. I love thinking about every single aspect of what my guest is gonna think about, like what from the candles that I light to the cocktails that I've curated to the menu that I've thought through. And when you're cooking with cannabis, I think the most important thing is to educate about dosing. So one of the things we're doing cooking classes several times a month right now to teach our customers how to cook with our products. And what we talk about often is the art of hosting. And so whether you're creating an experience at home or you're coming out into a consumption lounge, there's certain things that you want to experience. You want to have the multidimensional, multisensory experience with cannabis. It is a psycho-spiritual plant. So you want to be mindful of the music and the aromatherapy and the lighting and all of this. I mean, this is such a beautiful space right here. I can imagine very elegant experiences being curated here. But also thinking about dosing. So if we're gonna have a tasting experience, you don't want to give someone a 10 milligram edible right as an appetizer. You really might want to think about different microdosing things. And as you're creating delicious experiences with cannabis, you just want to be mindful of someone not over consuming. You don't want a beginner coming in here and having 100 milligrams, and before you know it, you know, they're passing out. And so all of these things as an operator, I'm sure you need to be mindful of. So having these dialogues, however, and experiences allows you to have that educational experience in a very fun and interesting way. You know, no one's gonna most people don't want to sit down in a classroom or in front of a Zoom to learn these things. But if we could teach them in a way that's fun and creative and elegant, then that's really how we expand into the next generation of cannabis consumption.
And one interesting thing about cooking with cannabis is that when you eat an edible, if it's traditional edible, it's not fast acting, not fast delivery. Depending on your physiology, it can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours before it takes effect. So you have to be very patient. And the two mistakes that people make who are cannabis naive who try edibles is one, start with a dose that's too high, because then you cannot dial it back. Second thing is becoming impatient. So you wait 45 minutes, an hour, you don't feel anything, so you take more. Well, that first dose is still coming. So again, as Smrita said, the dosing is really key to it. The other thing that happens is that the delta 9 changes into delta 11 in your body, and then it lasts much longer. So that edibles experience will last 4 to 8 hours, but that's because your body has made that delta 9 into a more potent form of cannabis. So there's a little bit of cooking term for you. And to follow up before you speak. Infused dining experiences are gaining popularity in legal markets. What are some responsible ways cannabis infused food and beverages can be incorporated into a tourism experience?
Sure. So the tourism of cannabis is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. Imagine the entire San Francisco area. You have this big metropolitan area, and then you have Napa Valley, Sonoma Valley, and you have all of the city populations that are able to go out into these beautiful experiences to taste wine. So I always thought, why couldn't we do that for cannabis, right? We have Philadelphia, we have New York City, and then of course, New Jersey itself is so densely populated. We're all hard workers, we're all stressed out all the time. Wouldn't it be nice if you could go to a cannabis vineyard of sorts, or a cannabis restaurant, or a fine dining experience, or even a spa? So these are all types of different consumption of cannabis that we don't normally think about every day. It's not just about smoking, it's about expanding it into all of the different ways. And I think that's really where our research at Veda Warrior, looking at the ancient Ayurvedic understanding of cannabis, what we realize is that there's so many different ways of consuming. What about a topical massage at a spa? Like that could be a consumption opportunity. I mean, people go to spas in Atlantic City. So what if you wanted to do something like that? So I think understanding all of these things and how it can adapt to the modern ecosystem, I think is really at the heart of the question.
Yeah, and I do hope that New Jersey will allow cannabis hospitality and tourism to expand, as they have in some other countries like Canada, where you actually have a farm to table model. And I do think that the ideas of having and experience out in the country, getting closer to nature, dovetails so nicely with cannabis hospitality and tourism. This next question deals with educating consumers in hospitality spaces. So we'll go with Jon and then Spencer. You'll be serving a mix of experienced cannabis users and tourists who may be new to cannabis. What education strategies do you plan to use in your lounge to promote responsible consumption?
I'd say first and foremost is different consumption methods for starting. So edible versus tincture versus smoke versus vape. Explain and educate really to your point about the time duration for edibles versus the straight versus the length of time it lasts. Critical for people to know and understand, and it's not always one size fits all. Whereas edibles take a lot longer to hit, they last a lot longer. Obviously, consuming via vape or smoking is much more immediate because it lasts quite as long. So oftentimes for a novice, that's actually your preferred approach. But then again, others just prefer not to smoke. So, I think that's a big element. The other aspect to me really is just that, as many of us know, you go down and pick up 20 different strains, all tested at 25% exactly in terms of cannabinoids, but they all have different effects. And the question is why. And a lot of people really don't understand that. We still see, especially in immature markets, people come in and look for the highest THC and they buy it. And what we saw evolve in the Pennsylvania market was much more understanding about the different terpenes and now even the esters in products that actually have different medical effects. Excuse me, we formulated a product that's actually geared, works like Tamiflu for the flu, but it's for COVID and for RSV. And it's the cannabinoids, CBG, CBGA, but actually there's no THC in it, by the way. But it's alpha-pinene and beta-pinene, they're bronchodilators. So, there's so many things that the terpenes can do, that certain cannabinoids can do that aren't just THC or CBD, that I think are really critical to get people aware of. Even experienced users don't necessarily know a lot about what's happening. And I think it's critical, even like all use or recreational one.
So the way that we think of it is, there's two layers of qualifying the customer. First, you're going to have them standing at the register talking with the bud tender, and that bud tender's job is to really understand what are they looking for, to get out of cannabis, recommending the right products, understanding their individual needs. So you may have somebody that comes in and has been smoking for 40 years and they know exactly what they want. They want to grab it, jump into the lounge, light up and smoke, and they can kind of just do their thing. But first, that bud tender is going to help try to pair the right product for that individual in front of them. Then when they get into the lounge, if they are a newer consumer, or this is the first time that they're consuming this method of consumption, even if they've been doing others for, decades, it's going to really give us the opportunity to walk them through, the step-by-step, again, in that hands-on setting. So then they get a firm understanding of what the product is, the method of consumption, opportunities, the effects and sensations and experiences that they're going to get out of it. And to really make sure, again, that we're qualifying them. If you get somebody that walks in with, a gram of, hash rosin and it's their first time ever doing a dab, that's a little bit of a different experience, with the education that we're going to offer than somebody that, smoked all through their 20s and 30s, stopped for a bit. Now they're trying again. They got one pre-roll. Those are very, very different hands-on experiences. So we want to make sure that one, we're recommending the right products for the right person, and that they have an understanding on what they're getting themselves into when they're buying that product. And then when they get into the lounge, we will follow that up with that hands-on guidance to make sure that whether they're new to this, to cannabis entirely, or just that form factor of that product, that whatever support they need, they're going to get. The last thing that we want to do is leave somebody high and dry in the lounge where they feel uncomfortable with our staff, with the environment, the people around them, the products, whatever it is. So, the simple answer is qualifying that customer and making sure that we understand what they need so we can provide as much of that service as possible. But if somebody like you walks in, you grab a pre-roll and you want to smoke, here's an ashtray, here's a lighter, call us if you need anything, and make sure that we still can give people that space to have autonomy over their own consumption.
Since consumption lounges are new, and this is a quick follow-up question for both of you, who will be opening some of the first consumption lounges in New Jersey. You've talked a lot about education and walking people through a lot of the process. It sounds pretty personnel heavy. Do you think you'll be hiring a specific person who might not be a bud tender, who will have a special job being some kind of consumption lounge concierge or whatever you might call it? How do you envision the staffing going in that market?
So I'm going to treat my entire staff as bud tenders, and the experience that they offer and execute will be different depending if they're in the dispensary or the lounge, but I need them cross-trained. I need them to be able to understand the entire workflow and user experience of being a customer in that dispensary and then lounge environment. So they can sell you at the register, they can educate you in the lounge, and no matter what type of question you have or what type of service that you're interested in, they're going to get that. A lot of that comes from hiring people that have worked in hospitality, that have worked in the hotels, casinos, restaurants, but then also having that passion and base of cannabis. I can connect a lot of those dots for them, and I can, shape them into the employee that fits my environment, because the way I'm gonna run things will be, different than John in a lot of ways. There'll be a lot of similarities, of course, but, these are different physical environments with different services, different products, and I need to make sure that they're going to be able to, support what we have to offer. So, I really want my staff to not get so segmented that they lose sight of that entire experience that the customer gets from when they walk in to check their ID to when they walk out that door to leave, outside of the lounge, and make sure that we cover all of our bases.
Yeah, I think to Spencer's point, we probably do have slightly different models. We have a little bit more specialization. So while we do cross-train our people, we have even downstairs a fulfillment model, meaning our bud tenders at the counter don't ever run back to get moving for the customer, right? So there's a specialized role for inventory, specialized role for bud tending, which is customer facing. We do it because our volume is huge. And if all the bud tenders have to learn where all the products are, new stuff coming in every day, we're going to end up with inventory problems. The other reason is that while that bud tender is with the customer, we want them to stay with the customer. We want them to have that experience and that touch. So it's just a little bit of a faster perception of in and out for those customers that want to get in and out quickly. The same would apply to the lodge. So we'll have customer facing, many of them, and dispensers will do the same with the bud tenders. They'll be cross-trained. They'll certainly be operating up here as well. But cleaning glassware is just another area where we'll have somebody really in the back end, more or less, doing that type of work. Making sure that you have a very different set of supplies for a lounge than you would down for a dispensary. So making sure we're always up to date on that. You can't really, we will have, you can see in the ledger, we have outlets in there. They'll pop up and we'll have kiosks on for you to order food from the outside and bring it in. You're not allowed to sell food in here per se. But again, utensils, things like that. You gotta make sure that we're always keeping up and having the right supply for the people.
And then a follow-up question for Smrita. What education do you provide to customers to teach them to effectively use your infused oils and butter? In particularly, how do you help them determine an effective dose?
Sure. So we kind of have a dual mission. So as I mentioned, our company is a holistic health company. We're rooted in Ayurveda. It's the world's oldest medical science, and it uses a combination of food, herbs, exercise, and lifestyle tools to proactively create health. So for us, it's really, really important to educate not just on using cannabis, but how cannabis fits into your broader wellness experience of your entire life, including your routine, how you're exercising, all these different things. So having this through educational experiences is really, really critical. So we're doing a lot of education through events. So event marketing is a huge part of our strategy. So we do cooking classes several times a month all over the state. We're doing 3 or 4 yoga classes per month. And so we basically have dispensaries that have space for us. We go back and we do a monthly class. And so our business is really focused on finding communities where we can build this regular communication with, so that we can teach them different things every time. For example, on Sunday, we're teaching a women's health cooking class. And so it's a team of women. I have an Ayurvedic chef who's going to be teaching the entire thing. And we're going to be cooking with our cannabis infused oils. We have a butter, an olive oil, and a coconut oil. But we're going to curate all different ingredients that are really good for women's health. And so again, I think in part of hospitality, if you're a hostess, you always want to be focusing on the storytelling of like, how did I curate this menu for you? And so this is something that we talk about often. It's not about just cannabis. It's about helping your guests understand that, no, this is an elegant experience. Cannabis is one of the things on our menu, but really this is about you having an opportunity to take a break from your busy everyday life. And, that's why people go to lounges and bars and restaurants. You want to have a nice, elevated, elegant experience. And so for us, teaching about that, doing the storytelling around the ingredients, the organic ingredients we've used, the medicinal plants we've used is really important. And we also want to teach people on ways to consume cannabis beyond smoking. And the important thing is we're not looking to disrupt the smokers. Like, I don't view myself as a competitor to any pre-roll brand or any flower brand. People who love smoking are not going to give that up. We're always talking about it. Okay, well, while you're here in the lounge, in addition to the pre-roll that you're definitely going to get, what about if there was a small infused treat that you could have, or a cocktail or a mocktail, so to speak. And so when we go into the edibles, we also think a lot about dosing. So if you're also going to be smoking, you don't need a 5 milligram or 10 milligram, like food or beverage necessarily. That might be too much, and maybe someone has to drive home. But a 2.5 milligram cocktail or a 2.5 milligram small bite could be a really fun and novel way for someone to experience like this multidimensional experience of cannabis without necessarily over consuming. And so, but having these educational experiences is so pivotal. So the cooking classes, yoga classes, and I also teach Ayurveda classes. And we have practitioners that we work with. If people are specifically there for pain management, we try to curate menus for them, made with our food that are good for pain management, arthritis, for example. Additionally, we are making our own proprietary water extracts of 35 different medicinal plants that we're formulating with cannabis. And our water extracts that go into our gummies that we're about to launch, we're also doing R&D to launch them as beverages. So for example, we have aphrodisiac herbs that we're using to create a gummy. Well, how cool would it be if you could have an aphrodisiac mocktail if you're out with your date and you're going on an infused experience to say, okay, well, later on we want to have fun, so let's add some aphrodisiacs to our entire experience. So these are the kind of things that we would love to bring in of how can you curate different other ingredients along with the cannabis to curate a specific experience for yourself. And John, I love that you brought up like the medicinal qualities. And so that's really where Ayurveda comes in, right? You might be at a consumption lounge, but you might also be a woman who's on her period. So then you might want to go for the cocktail that has the women's health herbs in it as well, or aphrodisiacs or sleep or joint care. There's so many different ways. So instead of thinking of it as going to a bar and having a cocktail, which is just there to get you drunk, you can be here and sit here and say, okay, this is an elixir using cannabis alongside other yummy and delicious and botanical herbs that also have this wellness benefits.
Interesting. That is quite an ecosystem that you're building that goes well beyond just infused food, but also very high touch with your customers. I mean, it sounds like you have a good amount of time, half an hour, 2 hours. That's a lot. You can make a lot of impact during that time.
Well, and just to that, this Saturday from 2 to 4 o'clock at SunnyTien, we're actually going to have a Veda Warrior cooking tutorial where, they'll have a full table set up. They'll walk you through different potential recipes that you can use the coconut, olive oil, and butter to use, and, really work with each individual customer to figure out how these products can fit for them. Like Smrita was saying, it's, about integrating the Veda products into their lifestyle as opposed to them shaping their lifestyle around those products. And being able to work hand in hand with, an individual and understand, like, do you like to cook? Great, here's how you can use it. You don't know how to cook? No worries, drizzle some olive oil on your salad and toss it through and it's infused. And those type of experiences really help people to better understand how diverse and dynamic the Veda Warrior products are, as opposed to just being, a cookie or a brownie or a gummy, which can be very one-dimensional at the end of the day.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about regulations. And we'll go to Jon Spencer.
Did we all grow up at the same time?
So, unlike traditional bars or restaurants, cannabis hospitality faces unique regulations. How do you ensure a safe, compliant, and enjoyable experience for customers? And what are your recommendations for revising regulations down the road for the NJCRC?
The second one's easier than the first. I was gonna say tired hands behind your back. It's challenging. I mean, in terms of safety, to me, it's obviously with lots of dispensers saying you have to qualify your customer. You have to understand, what level they're at in terms of understanding and versus naivety. Also ensure they're not over intoxicated when they get here. So it's from that perspective, it's not too different than a bar. However, with cannabis, it's very different in the sense that You know, some people just don't know how to use it at all. The overconsumption aspect, should be very careful of. It's new, so from that stance, from a staying compliant. With respect to the lounges, I mean, we have an obligation to allow any medical patient to come in and bring in their own products. In general, people are dissuaded against bringing in other outside products, although I don't think there's even a right against that, is there? Like, we come back from here, you can take it to the side.
We have the right to control what they bring in. Medical patients, we cannot stop them from bringing in their stuff, but for just recreational consumers, like, we're personally not gonna allow any external product because we can't take that risk.
Right, that's the issue, is it legally purchased or is it not legally purchased? Because it's not legal, correct, that's not compliant. It is technically compliant though for, you know, somewhere to buy beer to take it to Spencer shop. But again, like you said, we probably do the same thing and not allow outside product to, just for that control purpose. You know, other aspects, you look at the coffee machine, you're not technically allowed to have beverages at all, food, drink, doesn't matter what it is. That area is actually leased out by a separate company, hospitality company, and then we will literally be buying from that company and serving the beverages. And so back to the employee model, there'll be a different employee working to serve in that coffee machine. That's part of the regulatory kind of navigation that you have to do at this point. What would I like to see changed? That specifically, the ability to serve food. I also don't find Jersey's, one of Jersey's regs, if you have an outdoor lounge, it doesn't have to be accessible from your dispensary. If it's an indoor lounge, it can only be accessible from your dispensary. So somebody like us in a vertical hotel like this, it really kind of squelches how far we can expand, if you will. But like everything else, the states, as they learn more, as the business grows, things will definitely change. Regs are constantly changing. Hopefully for the better.
Here's hoping.
Oh.
So yeah, so I think the regulatory challenges are, you know, goes without saying. It's one of the biggest jobs of any cannabis founder is just compliance and just making sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and all that stuff. For me, I think the biggest regulatory challenge I'm interested in figuring out how to solve is how do we serve infused foods that are made with our oils. So our coconut oil and our butter are not end products. Like I wouldn't necessarily recommend you just take a spoonful of ghee, although it is pretty delicious. It has its own medicinal qualities, but probably not what you want to do when you go out for an experience. And olive oil is a little bit easier. It's delicious, extremely high quality Greek olive oil, and it's as easy as just sprinkling it on top of food that you already got. So I can see that being an easy thing, or you can just buy a bottle of olive oil if you're here with a group, and then you can put it on whatever you're eating. But with the ghee and the coconut oil, it's more of a question of how does that trade even work? How would that even work with the local chefs, wherever our consumption lounges are? And so I actually don't have all the answers to this, but this is something I'm interested in solving, and I'm definitely combing through all the fine print to figure out how that could work. And beverages are a little bit easier because of course the beverages would come in single servings anyway, so it's like, you know, pouring a glass of beer into a glass in the alcohol setting. So those are some of the things I'm looking to solve. Additionally, shelf stability is really something that I really hope that the CRC takes another look at. For example, our olive oil and our ghee butter and the coconut oil all come with COAs of over 2 years of shelf stability. These are shelf stable, pantry staples. Imagine an olive oil sitting in your pantry. You don't have to throw it out every 6 months. But because of the CRC, we have to have a 6-month expiration date, which is actually not backed by science. It's just a regulation that you know someone came up with. And so some of these things are points that we're trying to have dialogues with CRC around.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that if you have longer expiration and on a product like that, that's not going to expire, you could then even have bigger packages that are possibly more affordable. Instead of having to sell the small stuff that people will definitely use within 6 months. Plus it has to get to the dispensary, it has to be sold, so it might sit there for a little bit.
Exactly.
I can see why that would be a big thing for them to take a look at. Spencer, do you have a take?
Yeah, so there are, you know, a bunch of things that the CRC has done right. You know, as John mentioned, we can, we can control who enters the lounge. So if somebody comes in too inebriated or intoxicated, we have the right to not allow them in. We can cut people off while they're consuming if we think that they're, you know, approaching a certain point or they have overconsumed, we can cut them off and we can also remove them from the lounge. If somebody's become problematic, offensive, harmful, dangerous, anything like that, it is private property. We do have that control as a private business. So thankfully, we have some good oversight on making sure that the lounge is a safe space at the end of the day, which is always priority number one. When we talk about consumption lounges being a part of hospitality, they're really not right now in New Jersey. And, one of the biggest reasons is the lack of immersion and integration with food and drink. The fact that I can allow 50 people into my lounge to consume a product that is very dehydrating and often inhaled, and I can't offer them a cup of water is a safety concern. If you have somebody coughing and choking, because they took too big of a bong hit, I just have to sit there and go, well, order some DoorDash. It puts us in a really, really tough position where we can't maintain that level of safety that we want to. So enabling us to be able to provide prepackaged food and drink the way that craft breweries can, bottles of water, pretzels, can truly, elevate that experience, but also give us so much more to work with. But that's just the first layer. Really being able to work with companies like Veda Warrior to build those true hospitality experiences in these environments is where New Jersey needs to get. That's going to take us from just being these side rooms that people can come smoke in. Now, which granted, High Rollers and SunnyTien's, our little side rooms are stunning. It's not just somewhere that we threw some tables and chairs and they were designed with intention, but, again, it really kind of hits that limitation. But if we could have somebody like Veda Warrior come in and do a full infused experience with us and not have to dance around compliance and regulations or utilize certain loopholes or, fight from the ground up to get things changed, which can take, weeks or months or, require statute changes. When we can get over those hurdles and really run the lounge as a true essence of hospitality, then I think we're going to finally get to that point where, nothing's ever going to be perfect in the Jersey market, but at least we can do everything that we have all dreamed and have envisioned and mapped out and are ready to do so. We just need the right path forward, with the right guidance to do it properly.
So we're going to have a couple of quick questions here because we are kind of winding down on time just a little bit. So this question is for Jon, and it's about building a local cannabis economy. Your lounge is going to attract both locals and tourists. How do you plan to work with local businesses, especially casinos, restaurants, or events to integrate cannabis hospitality into the broader Atlantic City cannabis economy?
Good question. So there's definitely multi levels to that. One is just offering space that people could utilize for parties, for staff parties, for Christmas parties. We just actually, I guess, segueing into the second is events. We're actually having a 420 event, and granted it's Easter Sunday, which is a little bit of a twist this year, but we're having 4 bands in Brighton Park, right between Claridge and Boardwalk. Slitter Sunlight will be headlining the cover band, but we were originally going to do it on 419, originally 419 only, and then 419 and 420. But Hard Rock's doing a show on 419. It's called Ballpark Empire, Cypress Hills will be headlining. So we've been working closely with Hard Rock, Borgata to a lesser extent, starting to with Ocean, not doing co-promotions and co-shows. So we're promoting the Hard Rock event at 419. They'll be promoting our 420 event in the Cypress show as well. The flyers may be out down there today, but I think there's a lot of that cross pollination that can and should happen. Talking with Hard Rock, as you know, there's even a bigger stigma with respect to casinos and cannabis. There's just that separation that has to occur. But they're very cognizant that it is making its way and starting to sort of take away from their alcohol business. And their perspective on it now is kind of, we need to get on board, we need to get ahead of this stuff. So they're much more open this week than we were a year ago this week, in terms of having those discussions. So we are seeing the evolution. But the other side of the casinos is they generally don't want people to leave the property, right? So for them, they do everything they can to keep you there. So that's a little bit of a cultural change for them as well, because we're not ready to have it on the property yet, even though install it in the buildings to get those, get them to be willing to let us shuttle you down here and back it's an evolution. But I think on the local side, the 420 event, we're going to have 4 food trucks, local food trucks, some artisan pop-ups, so somewhat like small farmers market, but it's a music festival. And we're looking to do more and more of those throughout the year.
Thanks. So, Smrita, we're going to talk a little bit about trends in cannabis consumption and dining. What are some of the biggest trends you see in cannabis consumption, whether in cooking, product development, or consumer preferences?
Well, one of the trends I'm definitely seeing is a rise in these infused dining experiences. I have a privilege of working with a lot of different chefs right now, so we're partnering with different chefs who are already doing experiences. And I think that they're growing in popularity quite a bit. There's a number of different dispensaries that have opened up throughout the state of New Jersey, which are either next to or close by to, or have an affiliated event space where they have consumption friendly events. And I think that people are just ready for something different as well, you know, like we don't have to hide the fact that we're consuming cannabis anymore. So how fun is it to be in a setting where you're allowed to openly smoke and then also allowed to consume different edibles and drinks, and as I keep saying, like have this multi-dimensional experience with cannabis, which really goes back to how we were allowed to do this before prohibition happened. So I think the trends that I'm seeing are really going back to the ancient way before any of these regulations existed, because one of the things I'm passionate about is just studying the history behind the economics of cannabis. And if you really zoom out many thousands of years ago, this was a major cash crop that was traded all over the world. And so there weren't restrictions around eating it and smoking it and rubbing it all over your body to heal and all these things. So I'm seeing like us reverse back to what once was, and it's really exciting to witness.
Fantastic. So we're going to take audience questions in just one moment. So if you want to formulate a question, that's great. And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask an open question to all the panelists. And that is, what cannabis hospitality or tourism experience have you personally enjoyed the most and why? And I will throw in that for me, I'm a fan of all kinds of cannabis tours. So if I can ever tour any kind of cultivation, any kind of processing, I just love tours. And then also infused dinners and consumption lounges in Spain rank very high up there. Pretty fabulous. Anybody?
Well, I could say I had the luxury of working for Rabobank out of the Netherlands, about 11 years actually, but in the early 90s. Half my team was there in the Netherlands, the other half was in the US. So unfortunately, we made me stay weekends over there to reduce the cost of the flight back on Fridays. So I stayed for Sunday, got to experience literally all 51 cafes that were open.
Wow.
Wow. Really phenomenal. And then
You poor thing.
it was so tough. And then after that, and I did the same in Rotterdam and Eindhoven and really across the country. But yeah, it was a phenomenal experience. And that's what I really learned. You know, cannabis is a drug, it's a plant, and it's the compounds in it that are the drugs, and create the different feelings. But just being able to see how all the different places work, how they operate, the fact that cafes really mean something. Your coffee is amazing, and so is cannabis. So to me, that was probably the best experience.
Wow.
So I've definitely had some great experiences in Amsterdam as well. And I think one of the cool things about there is seeing it all normalized. Like as you would go into a restaurant, you would be able to consume cannabis and just without the stigma. So those definitely were amazing. But I think personally, my favorite experiences are the Indian ones, because we get to celebrate these ancient traditions. I think I was recently telling an aunt, that I started a cannabis company, and I thought that she was going to say something, not kind. And instead she was just like, I would have loved this story is your grandfather. He used to have bricks of hash brought into the house for these holidays. And I was like, really? And I would not have guessed that at all. But there's certain days of the year where it's normal and there's no stigma. So at our holy festivals, for example, there was little kids there, there was elders there, and there was no stigma because it's part of our culture. And so I love sharing those experiences now with our New Jersey community, because I think it's interesting from people who don't come from that culture. Be like, what? You guys are doing this in front of the kids? And we're like, yeah, it's part of the holidays, and it's a religious thing. And I think that experiences like that also help destigmatize it for the broader industry, because then people can see like, well, look at the Indians, they think it's sacred and it's fine. Look at them, it's okay. So I think the more we get to do these things, the more we get to kind of heal ourselves from all of the prohibition era, dark concepts we kind of had against cannabis, and kind of start moving forward, which is, the ancient future, I say.
Yeah, to play on, all of these answers, it really is about the normalization of cannabis consumption. And I think the most important aspects of the community events, going to holy parties where you're seeing different types of cultures, you're meeting different people, but there's so many different approaches to this. Friends of ours, high-end events, they had an event focused on dab products, concentrates back in early February. There was over 100 people there. There was 18 different products from like 10 different brands on the menu. People were able to openly consume either at the dab bar with the higher function or, just walking around, smoking a joint, eating their own edibles, whatever they wanted to do. And seeing a room of 100 people just peacefully consume cannabis together and sharing products, talking about where they got this from, which dispensary, which grower, it really builds that community. And anybody that works within the cannabis space, you know that you are either a part of the community or you're just here operating. And if you're not a part of that community, there's something missing. You miss that level of fulfillment, you miss that excitement, you miss that enjoyment, the opportunities to learn something new. And those are the events that resonate with me most, because it really shows that yes, we're all here for business. We're all here to make money and, do some cool, incredible things, but we're here because we love this plant. And when you're surrounded by people that love the plant too, nothing else matters at that point in time.
Fantastic. So what questions do we have from the audience? Go ahead, Donna.
So Spencer touched upon it a little earlier, but, and you're selling these products that people are ingesting. How do you gauge and measure impairment? And then how do you cut a customer off, right? Because you're in the hospitality space. So how do you do that tactfully?
That's one of the things that we're ultimately going to have to learn. To this day, there is no singular way to be able to gauge cannabis impairment. There's no breathalyzer for it, for DWIs or anything. It's really going to have to be a standard that we set based on, behavior. If somebody starts loudly cursing or yelling at other customers or slurring their words or, tripping over themselves, we're really just going to have to keep that close eye on everybody and do it on a case-by-case basis, because, you could have 5 people consume the same exact dose of the same exact product. For me, I'm a lightweight with edibles. I need 5 to 10 milligrams. For other people, they don't feel 100 milligrams. So you're really going to have to take that case by case basis and, not set concrete standards that we operate off of the way that, 0.08, blood alcohol is the line. For us, it's maintaining the safety of our space and making those judgment calls in real time.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question for you, if you're allowed to, if you can answer it, but also I feel for you, Jon, that you have to hire somebody for a cup of coffee to serve it, which is crazy. So my question for you is, what other states can you serve food in a dispensary? I mean, in a lounge, and how quickly was the process? Because you should be able to serve food, period. And beverage, which is crazy.
It really does vary state to state, but the most action is in California. And California has actually opened up a few, what I would call cannabis cafes. So if you go to West Hollywood, you can actually go and you can get a cannabis meal in a place that's very similar to this. And so they do actually cook with cannabis there, and they can serve product.
Did they start that way, or did it become that way?
No, it took a lot of years before they even did it. And then with other states, people try to work a lot of loopholes. So even in a place in Tennessee, there's a place called Buds and Brews, and they use synthetic cannabinoids. They use Delta 8, and they serve infused beverages. They have infused condiments. You can buy a hamburger, but then for $5 you can buy an infused ketchup, an infused mustard, infused pickle relish, all that kind of stuff. So it's mostly underground, but the only lounge action really is happening here in kind of a Wright and Broadway. We have about 12 townships that will do it. And then California has some, Nevada has a few, and then Colorado has a few that are kind of loopholes, like bud and breakfast places where they will do that. But it's more a private space that they will prepare things for you.
Yeah, that's the loophole, is that, when it's done in a private space, in a private setting and everything, that you can really, consume however you want on private property. Depending on who's facilitating that, depends if the CRC may have some oversight on brands that are involved, but what you do in the privacy of your own home or your own property is up to you.
Yep. The one comment I can make is Maryland's actually looking at regs now where the consumption lounges will be in restaurants. And it's still pretty early stage.
Interesting.
Rob, we'll take one from online. And I think I want to direct this question from you. It's from Eric D. You talked a lot about how staff will be educating patrons. Eric D was asking, well, how are you training the staff? So how are you training the trainers? And maybe Rob, as a faculty member of the Stockton Cannabis program, can give a
Could I
little
actually
insight
take
there.
that one?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
So SunnyTien has gotten certified from the Higher Function, which is a concentrate education organization. And one of their members came into the dispensary with our full staff and did a full concentrates education, course that was about 2 hours long, where he walked through all the individual, products that you can consume in concentrates, different methods of consumption, different approaches to dosing, and really gave our team that full scope of what this form factor is like, and not just, hey, you can take some really cool dabs in the lounge, but ensuring that safety and dosing and, the individual products are given that care and that attention. So that when our staff are, selling that product at the counter or grabbing them the accessories inside the lounge, they have that full understanding on what to expect out of these products. So, for us, that's really the important thing, is to recognize that education is continual. And that we always need to be learning, we always need to, be certifying our staff, as highly as possible to make sure that any education opportunities that are out there, we can bring in and implement with our staff so that we can pass that on with the customers. So, for any dispensaries that are interested in opening a lounge, I would definitely reach out to the Higher Function, because concentrates are very, very potent products and very, physically small doses. And you really, really want to be careful and make sure that your team are prepared to, talk, communicate, educate about those products.
Yeah, I kind of think of it as kind of a relay race. So Stockton University, we are the first ones with the baton. So we have the students who start there and they either minor or major in cannabis, or perhaps are involved in the club. And our responsibility is to educate them on the basics. So they will know about cultivation, they'll know about medical cannabis, they'll know about cannabis law, they'll know about business practices. And then from there, we like to hand off the baton to the businesses and give them internships and independent studies. So we've actually sent students to each of these panelists, and they have helped to nurture them and help to really guide them in their SOPs. So we give them a good baseline of cannabis knowledge, but from there, I depend on Spencer, Smrita, and Jon to take them and help form them and educate them in how their business works and what they need to do to be successful there, and to help them to go up the line so that they can actually become managers and really make a big impact in the cannabis industry. So we're all partners. We all talk, we all help each other. If they need somebody, if I have somebody, I send them along. So again, we are the first part of the baton, and then they hopefully take them and they educate them well and help them be successful and contribute into the cannabis industry in a smart, ethical, and socially responsible way.
And as a brand, I think that we have a big responsibility to invest in that education as well. So I love that we have some interns from Stockton. I love feeling like we're shaping the next generation of cannabis operators here. But also we're spending a lot of time and effort educating bud tenders in all of our different partner dispensaries, not just where we're doing consumption experiences, but definitely there as well. Just to make sure the bud tenders have that firsthand knowledge of who the brand is, what our story is, and how we're different. And again, for us, it's like our products right now are 3 culinary products, and food is by nature a social experience. So that storytelling of how you would present these ingredients, not just to the customer, but also to teach the customer how they're going to present it when they go and cook with it, whether that's for themselves or their family or their friends, or having a hospitality experience, whatever it is. We want to make sure that all of that training is there.
That is the education. Yeah.
But I will have one thing, the point about products, exactly right. So we go to dispensaries and educate on our products. So I think the product side of it is actually pretty mature. It's just getting it. What's definitely not there yet is device education. So how to use a student glass, how to use a gravity bucket. In college, people cut off the meter bottle, right? But there's a glass bag. So there's all different methods, vaporizers, volcanoes, you name it. So I'd love to see a course, and I think that would be fantastic.
I would love to as well. I have been talking to Stockton about trying to set up what I would call almost like a practice lab, where we could actually work with the metric system. Maybe we could actually grow a few plants indoors, we do. We do grow hemp on our farm outdoors, but anyway, I do think bridging that practical experience is something that I would like us to do a little bit more with. So I'll keep agitating. Yeah, Zach.
With the obvious attention of time and money and investment into the lounges, it's clear that you see them as more than just a place, like you said, to consume or smoke cannabis. So do you see them potentially being a place that people will come to or gravitate to regardless of cannabis, you know, a draw where you go see your favorite DJ or a jazz night or something like that? And how do you get there? Or is it to the point of hiring an event coordinator or something like that on your staff, a dedicated person for that? How do you see it evolving over the next year, let's say?
Yeah, great question.
Well, first, if you want is get the sound system fixed. We did hire a back coordinator and a black event. You know, like I'm saying, the vertical hotel, there's a lot of space here. So this would be our licensed consumption lounge, but we have access to a lot of other event space here. Theater that holds 600 people upstairs. All the way up to the view, which probably gotta be consumption friendly, right? At least on a regular basis. But you know, to that point, it's actually critical. It goes hand in hand, and even more so with the cannabis tourism mix of Atlantic City. We definitely plan on having regular jazz shows here, comedy shows here. Obviously, smaller bands and music events here as well. But as they get too big, move upstairs. As those get too big, move outside. But that definitely has been our vision. One of the key reasons we came here.
Yeah, part of the lounge being true hospitality is that you are integrating so many different forms of entertainment, you know, into one space. So, you know, you have to bring the arts in. The arts is what keeps culture moving and driving and growing. And, you know, when we have that opportunity to build an outlet for people to show off their craft, whether it's a DJ, you know, a physical painter, you know, an acoustic duo, whatever, you know, we want to be that community hub, that they have that space to be able to come in and explore and engage with other people, you know, which in turn creates an attraction for us. You know, it gives people a reason to be able to come in to that lounge. But, you know, the entertainment side is something that pretty much everybody's going to do with lounges. So, you know, SunnyTien is really looking at ways that we can expand and explore that even further. We have a partnership with the Green Shoulder from Elucidation Strategies, where their service, the Green Shoulder, is to have a member of their team come and consume with somebody in person to kind of hold their hand and walk them through, you know, that experience. You know, sometimes our bud tenders are not going to be able to sit down with somebody and spend an hour and a half with them to explore those products. So being able to give full access to the Green Shoulder in our lounge allows them to do a lot of the educating and to bring new people into our ecosystem that normally wouldn't walk into our lounge in general. Music and comedy nights and trivia, that's going to attract people no matter what, the same way that it does to practically every bar across the country. So finding different ways to use that space to allow the community to take advantage of what we have is really going to open up that ecosystem and connect hospitality in ways that, you know, a lot of bars and restaurants have kind of gotten lazy and just keep doing the same thing over and over. We want to explore new avenues and find new ways to welcome people into the space for reasons that are not just grabbing a joint and smoking it.
Yes.
So I have a question for Smrita, about brewing cannabis, particularly in the context of more like restaurant type settings. Due to the delayed onset of edible cannabis and then the extended duration of the effects, how do you translate that to a restaurant experience when it could take up to 6 hours for someone to have a full cannabis experience? Particularly from an economics standpoint, where a lot of restaurants have to make their money through turnover, or if not turnover, excessive alcohol sales. How do you make that transition into a more restaurant type atmosphere?
So one of the things I love about our cooking oils is that in Ayurveda, it was known that butters like ghee actually increased absorption time of many different things. Like they were also doing ghee mixed with other medicinal plants that had nothing to do with cannabis. And it was a known science that the oils actually helped it absorb faster in the body. So we're actually seeing that with our cooking oils, that it's actually not taking people 30 to 60 minutes to start feeling it, although we have no chemicals, no preservative. We're not using any azuca type of, enhancers in terms of faster absorption. It's literally, we have 2 ingredients in our products. That's what our customers love about them, because if you're really going for a premium dining experience, it's not about the chemicals in it, it's the opposite. It's like, how organic is it? How healthy is it for you? And so our cooking oils are no chemicals, no preservatives, 2 ingredients, it's the oil and the cannabis. And what we're finding, and this was in our early R&D, I wanted to understand how long does it take an average person to even start feeling this? And so for me, in under 10 minutes, I can start feeling even a 2.5 milligram microdose edible. And it's not that I feel extremely high, I kind of feel like I took a couple of sips of wine, which is kind of exactly what people are looking for. It's like, how can I have a modulated way to consume cannabis where I can, take 10 minutes, see how I feel, and then consume more as needed. I personally had a totally different experience with gummies. With gummies, sometimes it takes me 30 to 60 minutes to start feeling it, but it's a different form factor. You don't have this pure oil-based thing. So for me, I don't really wanna, as it relates to hospitality, I really just wanna drill down on cooking with my ingredients. And now that's something I have to figure out from a regulatory perspective. So for example, if John here had a chef, am I allowed to sell him bulk infused olive oil that they can then cook with? Or do I have to sell a retail unit to the customer and then they can maybe have it melted and added on or something? So those are nuances that I don't have all the answers to right now, but that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. But personally, I think the gummies, that is an issue. And so that needs to be figured out. But as when we bring it into restaurant experiences, I think we kind of solved that with the oils, which, most people are feeling them in under 15 minutes, at least the beginning of the onset.
And just to gas you up a little bit, one of the best things about a lot of their on-site experiences that they'll do is, Smrita talked about that storytelling behind things. So, she really curates those events to make sure that when you're trying something, you're getting a history lesson, you're understanding the science, they're walking you through the product, and it gives you that time to consume, sit back, feel it, learn, understand. And, it makes it more of a curated experience as opposed to just like, okay, here's a product, there you go. There's layers to it that give you that time to sit back and enjoy and feel it, not you eat, the infused whatever, it kicks in an hour and a half, the event's over in 2 hours, you get in the car, you're high. It really builds something to give you that time and space to work through the products.
And the professional chefs that I know, the professional cannabis chefs, they don't worry about turning over the tables.
Yeah.
What it is it's a reservation only, it's a very high priced event. It's a ticketed event, you have a limited number of people, you have a very special menu. And then most of them will do some kind of survey with their patrons to find out what they expect. Some people might only want CBD, some people want THC, and they'll customize the meal according to the customer. And a lot of them will start off right away with a beverage so that they'll feel something within about 20 minutes. And the appetizer may have something in it too, and then kind of so that they feel the effect. And then at the end, kind of level off with a nice CBD brownie and send it home. Yeah, but it is a long event too. I mean, often those last 3 hours, 4 hours, education in between. But yeah, so it's a one serving. You sit down once and you're there until it's done.
And it ties into the gentleman's question about different value-added experiences. So for me, it's not just about having our end customer being like, oh, I got hot. I want them to leave feeling like I had a delightful experience. That was amazing. I'm gonna tell my friends about it. I'm gonna come back again. So it's not just about saying how high can I get someone, but rather can I curate an experience that leaves somebody filled with delight? Like that customer delight is like really what we're seeking, right? You want to create delightful experiences that leave someone to want to come back and experience a healing that goes beyond just getting high. And so that's really where the food dialogue comes in. And now if you compare that with either if it's like it's storytelling, for example, people love meeting the growers and the brands that they're having. So in dinner parties, we invite cool, interesting guests to kind of curate this really interesting intellectual discussion. Or I've also done experiences where I have musicians and concerts. And so those music experiences are really cool. And we do sound baths and yoga. So it really depends on what type of experience you're curating. But ultimately, it's about saying, how can my guest have an amazing time by the end of it?
All right, so we're going to wrap up with a final question.
Okay, so any thoughts about integrating something like virtual reality into the consumption experience?
Yeah, absolutely. It's in our roadmap.
Okay.
It's about all I can say.
Cool.
But yeah.
And we'll take one more from online because we're want to let us go over a little bit since we started late. So just, you've spoken a little bit to how you're collaborating together to develop experiences. John mentioned cross promotion between the 419 event and the 420 event. So the question from online is, what kind of marketing and promotion strategies are you guys looking into? Is it word of mouth? Is it?
Marketing is incredibly restrictive in the state of New Jersey. And this is some of the progress that we are trying to make with CRC to loosen up a lot of these regulations. You know, alcohol and tobacco can run pretty free, and, you know, cannabis is heavily restrictive. So, you know, there are proper channels that we can take advantage of. But at the end of the day, word of mouth is and always will be the greatest form of marketing. And because with the lounges, these are experience-based environments, people love talking about things that they've done. When they've gone to a new beach, they've gone to a concert, they've gone to, you know, a really cool bar, or they've gone to a museum, whatever it is. People love to share those experiences because they physically themselves were immersed into it. And we can, you know, take out ads with Philly Inquirer, NJ.com, the Press of Atlantic City for, you know, local media. We can hand out flyers all day, but at the end of the day, you know, we know that when somebody comes in and has that quality experience, they're going to want to talk about it. That is the fundamental of human behavior. So, you know, we're going to do plenty of traditional marketing for as much as we can, but, you know, we're really relying on that, you know, that consumer to be able to spread the word and show people that this is something you need to step into to see. You can't watch this movie from home. You can't listen to the song on your iPhone. You have to come in to see it.
I think the one benefit we do have with the event stuff is it's not limited. So whereas today, you use TV as a medium for dispensaries and cultivation, but like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is the allowable window. In other cases, you have to prove you're targeting, I think 71.8% people over 21, no billboards in the state. So you see them all in Philadelphia.
Unless they're on your property.
Unless
Because we all have billboards on our property.
Right. But then they do define a billboard as 10 by whatever. So, but you know, you see the Walt Whitman Bridge, there's 7 of them before you get to Jersey. Same thing with coming in from New York. So with events, we don't have that limit though. So with Facebook, all your standard methods. Social media is pretty much allowed anyway, but you really can, except when they ban Instagram or those things. But in terms of CRC's perspective, it's allowed. So it does help a little bit, which the lounge is why you can probably get away with a lot more on the lounge side as long as you don't manage cannabis.
Which is all we're doing.
Yeah, right. To that end, just to kind of nice bow on it, can we go down the line and just where can people find you? Because I know, John, we're standing in your lounge, but tell us each of you where you can.
Typically here, unfortunately, it's a rather expensive office these days. It's not open as a lounge yet, but we will be open. Well, we could apply April 2nd, so very soon after. Although there are true licensed CRC lounges yet in Jersey, right? So, you know, January 2nd is when the social equity candidates were able to apply, but generally here.
You can find Veda Warrior in over 50 different dispensaries in New Jersey. You can check us out at vedawarrior.com. And on the website, we have a current list of where all the stores are. And on Instagram, you can find us at Veda Warrior as well.
Yeah, so SunnyTien Dispensary is right next to Tropicana Hotel in Atlantic City on Atlantic Avenue. I'm there 7 days a week. So if you want to come get a sneak peek at the lounge, come on in. We'll show you what's to come. And you can find us at sunnytien.com and on Instagram at sunnytien.ac.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And if you want to know anything about the Stockton University Cannabis Education offerings, whether it's the minor, the major, our club, webinars and other things that we do, you can contact me, robert.mejia@stockton.edu. And thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob, for this.
Thank you for having us.